Alright guys, so we read scene 3 today in class. So this video will kind of take you through the key points and imagery and symbolism in the scene. So make sure you have your notes open, and remember you need to write down a brief summary and take a few notes from this video. Scene 3 is really a pivotal scene in our play. This scene cements Stanley's identity as the villain in the play. We see him drunk, violent, angry. It also highlights the primal nature between Stanley and Stella. Their relationship is one based on physicality, on passion, on domination. This scene also illustrates Stanley's friends and his wife's devotion to him, even though he may not deserve it. And this scene also shows us Stella choosing Stanley over Blanche. Now, in his stage notes, Williams redecorates the apartment for a night of poker. There's a green light shade over the light bulb in the living room, and it kind of casts this very eerie, ominous glow over the entire apartment. This is some foreshadowing for us. The men are sitting around the table, they're drinking, they're eating watermelon, and they are acting quite coarse and powerful. This is a guy's night in, so of course they're boasting and bragging and teasing. This combination of the masculinity and the eerie light bulb, it's supposed to give us a sense of foreshadowing, this idea that something bad is going to happen. Now, of course, Blanche and Stella come back from their night out, and we learn more about Blanche in this scene. We see more and more about her vanity, which we saw a tiny bit in scenes 1 and 2, but here her vanity makes her lie about Stella's age. When Mitch asks her about her family, she says that Stella is the older sister. She says that she's come to help Stella. She's trying to make herself look better in the eyes of Mitch, who she sees as a potential boyfriend or lover. It is important to note that her lies are not malicious. She's not trying to hurt Stella. She's not trying to hurt anybody here. She's trying to protect herself a little bit. Blanche uses deception, lies, manipulation to make herself feel better, to make herself look better. The big question is why? What is she trying to hide? What is she really running away from? And this leads us to the question of why is she even in New Orleans? So not only have we seen Blanche flirting with Stanley, flirting with Mitch, but she also flirts with the entire room full of men. The girls close the curtains between the bedroom and the living room, but there's a small gap, and in that small gap, Blanche kind of walks back and forth, knowing that the men are watching her. She almost can't help but to flirt with them. It's more of an instinct than a choice. In scene 3, we really get to this contradiction in Blanche's character. She is a genteel Southern woman who expects people to act with manners and a certain behavior, a certain level of respect, but she also is a seductress, a flirt. She's very open with her sexuality, and so this is a bit of her anti-hero archetype here, that she wants to be respected, but she almost can't help throwing herself at men. We also learn quite a bit more about Stanley in this scene. Stanley spends most of the scene screaming, yelling, hitting, making fun of people, being rude. He is out of control in this scene, absolutely more animal than man. And this behavior is echoed at the end of the scene when he stands outside and yells for Stella, that very famous line of "Stella!" And even Williams says he's like a baying hound. He's like a dog. So Stanley here is definitely more animal than man. Pretty much everything in this scene having to do with Stanley is about manliness and aggression and domination. That his behavior is loud, it's controlling, even over his friends, he tries to be in control. And that part where Stanley throws down the watermelon really shows his disregard for both the house and for Stella. It shows us that he has no respect for her or for their home. We also see Stanley throwing the radio. We see him smacking Stella on the bottom and then hitting Stella at the end of the scene. Stanley's behavior is really quite alarming, and you should feel almost disgusted or really disgusted by his choices. Now, in the scene, he does attempt to really wash away his sins or have his sins forgiven, both by being dumped in the shower. This is the symbolic cleansing of the sins. But it's also, we also see him begging forgiveness when he goes outside and he yells for Stella. This is still a very animalistic behavior, but in Stanley's mind, this is him asking for forgiveness. Now, Stanley's shower versus Blanche's bathing is an interesting contrast. Blanche uses bathing as a way of escaping reality, while Stanley's shower brings him back into reality. And these metaphors of bathing and showering will come up throughout the play. Stanley and Stella's reunion at the end of scene 3 really echoes back to the meat throwing in scene 1. This couple is overly passionate. Everything they do is based on their sexual relationship. I've always felt like there was a sense of kind of King Kong in Stanley picking up Stella and carrying her away. This is again kind of echoing back to his primitive, his animalistic behaviors. Stella choosing Stanley is an important comment on her character. She is dedicating herself to the Kowalski side. No longer is she a Dubois. And she's basically saying she'd rather have the passionate, violent Stanley than the deceptive Blanche. And I really want you to think here about her choice. This is something I want to talk about with you guys tomorrow. Who would you pick? Who would you side with? Blanche is really shocked that Stella goes back to Stanley. And to be honest, I was the first time I read the play as well. But Mitch tells us, and he tells Blanche, this is pretty normal for them. This is kind of how their relationship goes. And Blanche has a hard time with that. She is now pretty much determined to take Stella away from Stanley. She doesn't want her sister to be in this situation anymore. And this is going to become the kind of central conversation in the next several scenes. So I've always felt kind of bad for Mitch in this play. Mitch is the complete opposite. He's a foil character for Stanley, where Stanley is harsh and cruel. Mitch is kind. He lives with his mother. He's considerate. These two men are complete opposites. So where Blanche cannot control Stanley, she can control Mitch here. This couple, however, of Mitch and Blanche, they're badly matched. That even when they dance together, their timing doesn't match. And Mitch dances clumsily, mimicking Blanche's grand movements. This idea that they are complete opposites as well. Williams does work in some interesting symbols in this scene. Blanche, while out with Stella that night, bought a Chinese lantern to put over the light bulb in the bedroom. And this is symbolic of her inability to face reality. The light threatens to reveal Blanche's lies. If she stands in the direct light, people will see that she's older than she appears to be. She's not as pretty as she claims to be. So by putting the lantern over the light bulb, she is metaphorically, symbolically protecting herself from her lies. It's also significant that she asks Mitch to put the lantern on the light. She knows Stanley won't help, but Mitch is a gentleman. She might be able to control and deceive Mitch. Like our previous scenes, Williams does use music and sound in this scene to help establish mood. The harsh, jarring, clashing piano sounds at the end of the scene highlight Stanley's violence. That the sound on the stage, the sound in the theater would be this harsh, frightening experience. And that's to help us understand the fear that others would have been feeling. Then at the very end of the scene, the animalistic jungle sounds, again, these symbolize Stanley's animalistic nature as well as the very base passion Stanley and Stella have for each other. Our scene ends with a very important quote where Blanche says, "There's so much confusion in the world. Thank you for being so kind. I need kindness now." And it's ironic that Blanche says there's so much confusion in the world when she herself adds to the confusion as almost a compulsive liar. But keep in mind this idea of kindness. You're going to see this come back up later in the play. I want you to think about this for tomorrow. Initially, Williams titled this play The Poker Party. This shows us how important this particular scene is to the play. I want you to think about why Williams nearly used this title and why you think he changed it.